Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. This is Service Station Project Creation and Approval 101. My name is Joe Leva, and I'm joined today with Gail Trask, and we are doing live training today. Say hello, Gail.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Project Creation and Approval
All right, so
in Service
today,
Station.
as you can see here on the screen, we have a short list to review. What we plan to do is show you the different options that you have in Service Station so that as you go through your project list and make updates, or you may potentially create a new project, you need to understand what the methodology is behind how you enter in your details and how and the workflow works and how you get things approved. So we'll walk through those. We'll look to answer as many questions as we can as we go through the different pieces of the puzzle. In some cases, we may not have the answer as we run through, and in that case, we'll refer to a FAQ sheet in which we'll answer some of the detailed questions that come out of this. So, with that being said, Gail, is there anything specific you want to mention before we just kind of jump into this?
Yes, there is. The project creation and the existing projects that have been brought over from Initas or CAPPM into Service Station are there for a reason, and that reason is to support finance. This is a system of time entry and time approval against projects. That data goes to Oracle Project Accounting, where they receive the time, they book the time there, they create actuals against the project, they receive invoices in from contractors, and they book that those amounts against the project. So this is a method or a means for finance to have a holistic view of the cost of doing projects within Rick Gibbs's organization. It is being driven by Rick Gibbs himself. That said, this does not have, at least at this time, the ability to do resource allocation. You cannot put hours or days against resources for tasks or projects. If you need to do that for your project, then we recommend using Microsoft Project, and all you need to do is request access to that, and the company has a corporate license for it.
Fantastic, Gail. Thank you so much for talking about that. And just on that same topic of project that existed, you may have been someone who used Initas prior, or CAPPM, or potentially another system in which we loaded some of your project that existed prior. So that's that starting point. Is if you happen to work in another system, take a look at the different list. You should be noted as the project manager. In some cases, there may have been some deltas. If you happen to see any issues with any existing projects that didn't make it over, or where perhaps you're not the PM and you should be, please log a ticket with the Service Station team, and we will look into the issue for you and contact you directly. Okay? All right, so let's talk about managing existing projects. So I'm going to be playing around in my dev environment with some test projects that we created just to show. You'll see I'm in here as Robert Nunley. He's a project manager in our organization. So if I see this is a test project for Joe, that's the name of the project. So first things I want to call it here is I'm in a list view. So if you first sign in to Service Station, you're going to see this list here. It's self-service, which some of you've had this access prior, gives you the ability to update your profile, see different dashboards, etc. This isn't anything new since it just may be the first time you've seen it if you haven't been in the back end of Service Station in order to be able to see the different modules. Here you'll see project, and this is our core application that now you have access and rights to. You'll also see reports and performance analytics, which allows you to get reporting out of some of the data that for your projects. So we'll touch on that slightly However, we may have an entirely different video just in reporting in general that may help you when it comes to getting some details around your projects. It could be how many people have booked time against your project for a given month or something like that. We can help you create those different types of reports. So if you look at project, I want to expand that out.
Joe, I'd like to stop you there, Joe, for just a
Absolutely.
moment. For those who have not been into what's called the back end of Service Station, and that's what you're seeing here, how do you get here? You get here by doing one of two things. You can either go into Service Station directly from Okta, or and there you will see the portals link at the top. And Joe's not, I'm not sure why, but he should see the back end.
Oh, you know what?
The other.
Yep, you're right, Gail. I came in as another person, but I think I know which direction you were going there. Yep.
Yeah. There is a portal for back end that's at the top there, above Service Station, that is in the list. Or you can simply remove the ESS from the URL, as Joe is doing now, hit enter, and now you're in the back end.
All right, thank you, Gail. So what we'll do is you'll notice you have your different modules. So you'll see these arrows, and I'll collapse them. You can see two different things. You have your projects and tasks. Think of tasks as just another ability for you to be able to see tasks in and you can drill into all the different tasks you may have as part of your projects. You can still get to your tasks from your project, so I'll ignore that for now. You'll see different modules like Planning Console, Project Status Portal, your Workbench, Project Manager dashboards. These are all different dashboard views that give you a different angle into your project. We won't cover them today in this class. However, what I just want to note is we have different specific training modules which talk about dashboards in general, how you use them, and I think that's where we'll spend less time here and more on the actual specific projects. So I'm going to go into this My Projects module. So if I click on My Projects, this in this one case, there's only one project that's showing here. So in this list view, you have a lot of capabilities to do different things. So I'm going to shift over to the test environment for me. And in some cases, I'm going to show you different things that you have as an admin, but this is just my account where I have several projects in flight here. So one thing that you'll notice is that you have the ability to hit your gear icon and you can change out through a whole bunch of list of different fields. And what that allows you to do is maybe switch up. Maybe you want your project manager to be second and your state to be third. Maybe you don't want to see project manager at all, but I would simply just click on that field, move it up one, and hit OK. And in this case, it refreshes, and now I'm the project managers here. I could also sort by state or group by my state. So I'm going to click this, and it's going to sort now by my state field. So you notice it did that. Now, let's say I want to switch this up. Instead, I want to actually group by my state field to get an idea of how many different projects are in different states for me. I can right-click state, and I can just say group by state. In this case, you can see I have 16 pending, 7 new. I have a whole host of them work in progress, and 1 complete. So it just kind of gives you an idea of the different things that you could do from a sorting perspective. I'll come back in here and ungroup. All right, so
Now,
go ahead, Gail.
well, one of the things, yes, if you group, one of the nice things is that you can then drill into that group. You don't. It's not just a static view. So if we go into, Joe's doing it again. So if we want to see all 16 pending, and that's all we care about, or the 7 new, we just click on that, and there they are, and you eliminate all the others, all the other noise, per se.
Yeah, good call out, Gail. That's fantastic. So spend some time going through the different options here. You'll find you have plenty of other things that you can do. I can just grab this entire export right here, and I can just dump it into Excel, and I can do my own sorting. Let's say you had to do some somebody asks you to get some key field definitions or values from your projects, might be a really easy way for you to show it in Excel, versus until you may get up to par, up to speed with the way you can create reports in ServiceStation, which can provide you those pretty graph views instead. So I'm going to open one of these. So this is that list view. I'm going to go ahead and click on the project number here, and this is going to take me to that main screen. So in this case, there's a couple of things I want to call out here. Is at the very top here, you'll see what we call the pizza tracker, or your different states that you have for your project. So when you first start off, you're in a new state, and then there's various pieces of the workflow that have to go through before this gets approved, and essentially is an active project. So we'll run through all of those details today when it comes to creating a project. Gail, any other comments at that point?
No,
Okay.
I'm good.
All right, so let's go back to the dev environment. I want to open up this one project. And a couple of things I want to call out right from the start is this is an active project. What that means is it went from new, where it's really just in your view as a project manager, to once you hit a button that we'll go through, which is request approval, essentially an email gets generated and it gets sent to the finance approver. So in this case, it was sent to Sergey, and when it was, he had the option to approve or reject, and it was approved, so it passed through our project accounting team. Project accounting then comes through and reads through the various pieces of your project, which again we'll run through, and in those cases we'll determine what your ruling is and we'll approve it. We then have an integration that goes with Oracle, and in that case, once project accounting approves, we actually send these key details for your project to Oracle for project accounting setup. Once that occurs in the Oracle system, Oracle then passes us back a what we call a foreign key, and that's this number here under this Oracle number, FISSYS number. And once that number exists, your project now exists in ServiceStation and in Oracle, and it's an active project. And there's a big piece to this. When it's an active project, you now will see this additional assignee list, which allows you to add people into a group. So, or add people into your project. So one key piece I want to talk about here is that the easiest way for you to come in here and do this, let's say I needed to add an additional person to this project. I can simply start typing their name, and based off of that, I can hit that, I can close the lock button, and now this person has been added to my project. Now, what does that mean? Let's be very specific about what this functionality means, and it ties to what Gail was talking about earlier. What this system is doing here is essentially saying this is a project that exists for project accounting purposes and time entry. So this is an active project. The people added to the additional assignee list are people that you can essentially will see this project listed in their time portal. So this project, this test project for Joe, would appear in that list. And some of you have started using Add Me to a CapG project that shows in that time portal. And that very specifically, if I show you real quick what that looks like. So here's our time portal. You'll see in this case, there's no project showing here. However, if you needed to get added, or one of your resources needs to quickly get added to a project, they can simply click this link, and this link will take them to the catalog item that says, hey, go pick your project. Pick the project, the manager then approves that for that catalog item, and we automatically will add the person in for that project, and it'll appear in their time portal. So that's the key relationship here. Go ahead, Gail.
Yeah, there's a very specific distinction on manager who approves adding someone to a CapG project, and that is it is the person's resource manager. The reason for that is that the resource manager is the person who is approving the timesheet. The project manager does not approve the timesheet, but the project manager can, in this case, for the additional assignee list, add people to the project. There is no capability within this system for anyone to book time to a project where just cause. They can't go out and choose a project on their own and start booking time to it. Either their manager has to approve it through the Add Me to a CAPG project, or through the project manager through the additional assignee list. And that's a bit different than what existed for Invitas.
Very good point, Gail. So those are the two options to be able to add someone to your project, add a resource to be able to book time to your project. The one thing that we don't support at this time is if you wanted to come to add someone to perform work on your project, and that's due to licensing costs. So you will see this project task. So if I were to scroll down and kind of talk you through the form, you have your main header here that shows the form process workflow. You have your key fields on the project. You then will see these different sections which have various questions for information, okay? And then you'll also see what's called related lists or related tables with data that tie directly to your project. So one of them is tasks, where you can come in and you can click new. You can add a very specific task that you want to track. Now, as Gail mentioned before, this is very loose in terms of what you can do from a project management perspective, but you can create yourself some milestones or tasks that can coexist with your project. What you cannot do is reassign these tasks out to various people and have them book time against them. Okay, so this is a very loose version of what a project task could be. Same thing with a risk. You can identify a risk, a key risk. The two biggest reasons you would want these two fields added, which would be if you want to perform creating a status report, which is this next field here, you can. These will actually be historical records with numbers to them. You can quickly gauge what the overall health, scope, and status is, and in there you can note if there's a task or a risk. So it kind of helps tell that story. Gail and I will also go into the next section, which would be when we're creating a new project, the cost plans, the budget, and then lastly, how the project actuals tie in. The one I'll mention now is emails. This gives you an idea of the different emails that were sent out as it corresponds to your specific project. So in this case, when this was first created, you may have seen you're the project manager assigned to this project. The second one, I think I mentioned this earlier, Sergey would have gotten a pending approval email saying, hey, you have action required, you need to approve or deny the finance approval for this. And then lastly, once project accounting has made their ruling and it's set up in Oracle, you'll get an email that says, hey, this specific project now has received that Oracle ID, which means it's active and you could add resources to it. Well, lastly, we'll talk about the project actual piece as that works. Gail, any other comments as I move away from this piece?
Just that anyone who has used CAPPM in particular will recognize the fields on the status report. If you create one, it's very, very similar to what you are using or have used in CAPPM.
Okay, great. All right, so just going down the list here, we talked about adding resources, changing the project manager. I noted this. I guess I should just call this out. You'll notice that in this active state that there's only a few fields that you have that are editable. And there's a very specific reason for this. So you see you can change the project manager field, the end date, the description, and you can add resources. The reason all the other fields are locked down is this has been approved by your financial approver and by project accounting and is essentially synced with Oracle in terms of the project. So there's a lot of key fields that can't change over the duration now that it's an active project. So Gail, any other specific details on that?
Yes, there's, as we know, project managers can change, so that's why that one is open. The other one that's particularly important is the planned end date. Oracle cannot accept time after the planned end date time. So if this project were to end actually on October 7th, then, and someone were to try to book time in the week of October 9th, Oracle would reject it. So as you're getting close to the end of your project, your date, your planned end date, please remember to come in and change it if your project is not complete yet, and then we will update Oracle with it.
It's great. Okay. Fantastic. And again, we'll walk through how you add and remove project managers and description. When I create a brand new project, you'll see the functionality of this piece. Okay. So, looking at the list here, we verified the data. So one of the things I'll call out when we talk about verifying data is if one of your projects that existed prior or a new project that got created doesn't seem to have the right detail or information and you feel it needs to change, please, again, reach out to us, create a service station ticket. This is where we'll have a project admin come in and address these key issues as quickly as possible. So, so again, just log a ticket to us and we'll be happy to help address those changes. Project status, as Gail mentioned, you have the ability to create the status report. It looks very similar to what it did in CAPPM. You'll see it loads with the project name at the top. It has a unique identifier number, which means you can go back in time 6 months from now and find out what was my status report. So you can pick a date for your status, and then you have all of these key fields in which you can say, look, my overall health was green, and you can give some kind of summary. Same thing with your comments. Gail, is there anything specific you want to point out here?
No, there really isn't. As I said, it is so similar to what CAPPM had, and anyone who's done status reporting for projects knows what a green, yellow, red is, and basically it shows you, what did you do last week, what do you expect to do. It's
okay.
Commonplace.
Very straightforward. Discard that. I think it's very straightforward on that piece. Project tasks, I loosely discussed this, but if there's a task that you want to create that's tied to your project, again, you cannot reassign these to anyone at this time, unfortunately, due to licensing costs to get this first wave up and running. You'll notice that you do create a task. You can name your task whatever you choose. That is the one mandatory field on the task form. You have a project number, which it's the task number, which is automatically assigned to. You can put a time constraint. The one thing I think Gail and I want to very specifically call it is the power of creating a task. So you need to be careful that with your planned start and end dates for your tasks, they drive, if you decide to create one, they can drive the overall dates for your project. So for example, if I choose a task to only go through a certain duration, then I need to be careful that it did not update my planned end dates, because what ends up happening is some people, the way you may want to manage your project is all by tasks and by milestones. And so the system believes default, once you start creating tasks, that that's the way you want to essentially drive your planned start and end dates by your tasks. So if you decide to do that, then be careful to try to then match your task dates to be the same as your planned start and end dates, and then you won't have or see any of those issues. So if I go back, you'll notice that this project would go to 10/7. I would just make a mental note to say, let me just make sure that my end date matches the same end date of my tasks, due to out-of-the-box functionality that allows you to drive your project by task dates should you want to do that. Okay, Gail, any other specific you want to call out there? Okay.
No.
Pretty straightforward. You can note it as a milestone or a key milestone, and it's reportable if you want to do so. So if you want to target key dates on your project via tasks, you can then say, here's a key milestone date for us, right? Finishing development or promoting things to production, whatever it may be, as an example. Then you can report on both of those fields if you choose to do so. So be very, very cautious about those planned start and end dates. Okay, so going through here, let's create a new project. So we're showing you an existing project. If I'm Robert, I'm going to come to the Create New module. And here you'll see I have 3 different fields available to me. If you see this green bar, that just means you don't have annotations turned on, which in Service Station it gives you the ability to see what would be key text. So you see once I clicked on that question mark, and you can see here if I hit the ellipses, I can toggle my annotations on and off with this setting here. Okay, and once you leave them on, they're on across the platform. So if you're someone who works on, let's say, incident, problem, or change, whatever it may be, if you've already changed this setting, it applies across the board. In some cases, you may not want to see the annotations, and you can hide them. So it's really just a user preference thing. So in this case, what we're essentially driving here is you have 3 different fields that you can change or you can submit. So one is going to be the project name. So this is going to be test training project. And the next piece is business initiative. I'm going to have Gail explain this one so I don't butcher it. Thank you very much, Gail.
So most of the projects that are created for under Rick Gibbs' organization need a business initiative. Or should be tied to a business initiative. There is, as you can see from what Joe is showing, there's a list of 56 business initiatives currently. If you don't know what business initiative your project should be tied to, please talk to your manager or your financial approver. There are cases where you won't have any. That's okay. And in which case there is a none option. But before you just go ahead and say none, please make sure that, or please do the double checks to see which business initiative your project might be.
Yeah, and think of business initiative. If you're not familiar with this name, you most likely are coming from a project manager background. You would know, right? You have your projects and you have your portfolio. So business initiative is the equivalent of a portfolio. And at Cox Automotive, we have business initiative essentially in place of portfolio. So you can see how if we have a number of projects that are tied to a very specific portfolio, the power that the person who is managing that portfolio can then dive into the projects and be able to pull some key reporting. So this is just the beginning piece to that tie. As Gail mentioned before, you can choose none. I can simply start typing none, and you'll see that the option appears. Same thing for all of the others. So this is autocomplete, so I can start typing anything with an A, and I'll find different initiatives that show up. Okay? So for now, I'll hit none, and I'm just going to put a test in my description. Gail, anything very specifically you want to call out about the name and description fields?
The name is not that important, except for yourself, for your people who are booking time. There may be naming conventions that you've used in the past. So adhere to those. There's no problem with that. Description really should be something along the lines of what's the objective you're trying to achieve with this project.
Okay. That's great, Gail. And you notice that these are all 3 mandatory fields, so as soon as you have appropriate values in each, the red asterisk goes away, and that means you've satisfied that value. This is also assigned a project number. So at this point, you're essentially ready to save this. So I'm going to hit the save button. This will save the record, and you'll remain essentially in the screen. So What you just did essentially is you created a project that's in the state of new. So you'll see the new here on the process flow, and you'll see your state field is new. Um, you won't see your additional assignee list. That's for a reason. We don't want you assigning resources to projects until it has been approved. So again, always remember that tie into the Oracle project accounting system. The actuals that come back for your project as people book time will come back through project accounting. So that's that big tie-in that comes through here. So you'll see it carried over three main fields: my name, who the project manager is. It's going to be auto-populated with you, and the business initiative, which we chose as none. Okay, so planned start date. Um, you can change this to the date that you want. You can move it to the past as well. For purposes of demonstration, just make sure that your project is at least longer than 1 week, as there's a very specific Oracle requirement for that. If you try to save the form or request approval without it being a week long, you will get a message telling you to make that change. So I'm just going to make a change here for this to be December 2nd in my date field. Two other fields I'll call out here is this total hours approved, total hours pending approval. So if there are have been timesheets that have been approved with your project selected as that project, you'll see the running count of hours that were approved. And for total hours pending approval, you'll see where someone may have submitted a timesheet with hours that have yet not been approved by that manager. So it just gives you an idea from a project manager perspective of the amount of hours, number of hours that have been approved or pending approval that will be charged to your project. We'll also have a separate training session that'll talk about reporting against the time card or timesheet tables, which allow you to see the different people that have booked and the hours they've booked to your project. As we know, that is a key piece to this. So moving along, additional project information. One of the first things you'll do here is select the business unit. So this would be, Gail, what's the best way to describe, because we've received this question a few times when it comes to business units, department, and location, in terms of what am I selecting these for? Is this where the business unit I'm part of, or it's who's sponsoring the project? Could you help clarify that?
It's who, okay, yeah, it's who is sponsoring the project. Where is the funding coming from? So for the business unit right now, we only show DealerTrack and Dealer.com related business units. This will expand to include all of CapG eventually, which includes AutoTrader and Manheim. But right now, it's just DealerTrack. So if I were working in Dealer.com, or Dealer.com rather, what's funding this project, I would choose Dealer.com.
Fantastic, Gail. And in our dev environment, you'll notice Solution Group is not populating. That's for a reason. There's some development that's actually happening behind the scenes here. But basically, for your business unit, there's a very specific solution group that's tied, media solutions or retail solutions, that will auto-populate in production. Okay? So just ignore this piece. This is a read-only field that will auto-populate for you based off of your business unit selection. And then again, Gail, here, the department and locations, these are all driving off of the department that would essentially, what's the department that's sponsoring, right? This very specific. Yep.
That's right.
So I'm going to you'll see this list of different departments that exist for this company, Dealer.com. I'm just going to make a selection here. In some cases, you may find that you see a location called default location or something very similar to that. Let me just make a general statement when it comes to business unit, department, and location. These fields are data that is driven very specifically from Oracle. So we have integration where a lot of the key values that are driven for these specific three fields come very specifically from Oracle as they're set up. If you notice there's issues where you think a different location or department should be existing for your business unit, please reach out, open up a ticket to the service station team, and we can investigate and review the details there. So you may be familiar with seeing, hey, I know there's a much larger list of business units that exist in Cox Automotive with different departments and locations, and we would agree with you. However, this is shortlisted now for like Gail said, for different business units, and as we board, you'll see others in CapG, and we'll see this list grow. Okay, so just mental note on this seems to be the biggest questions we received so far. These three fields, how you're supposed to populate this information. Okay, same would go for the product field. This product field is metadata essentially that comes from Oracle. So there's a vast majority of products that exist in this table in which you can sort through. So again, if you happen to notice there's a product list that's missing, please let us know. We'll add that product accordingly. Gail, any other comment on that?
Yes, this would be another one where if you aren't sure of what the product should be, then I would talk to your manager or talk to your finance approver or talk to the business owner as to what product.
And this, what I would say is this, we envision this product field here and the product service field here, both of these fields to be changing every so often, if I'm not mistaken, Gail. Right, these will be updated to try to stay with the latest different products that are available per business units. In some cases, we know that there's different approvals or methods to which how Oracle gets updated with these different products, which then would reflect in Service Station. So again, if you're seeing some of those deltas, don't be alarmed. I think we kind of expected this as we threw these fields on in here for better reporting up through the different products for project accounting. So just note that we'll work to add those if you don't see them specifically. Gail, is there any specific?
Well, I will. Yes, I do. I do want to add something here. Joe's talked about if you don't see something, let us know, and absolutely let us know. The issue, though, is that for a business unit, a department, a location, a product, we can't do the addition.
Correct.
It has to be done in Oracle. So we would coordinate with the Oracle team to have those additions made or adjustments made if there's a naming convention that's a problem. And then it can be reflected in Service Station, but it's not something that the Service Station
great call out.
can do by itself.
This is something that we will do on your behalf to work with the Oracle team. And in some cases, we may need you as part of a quick meeting or email trail with those respective people of the data, just to determine why it's not on the list and how do we get it on the list. So, Gail, do you have any specific unique differences you can call out between this product field from Oracle and the product service, which shows the delivery stream?
The product service, this is more driven. So you can see on the right where it says product service group. In this case, and you can sort on that one, which is helpful to find what you might be looking for if you're if you're dealer.com to look at media. You can even type in media in there.
So I'll do that. I'll hit an asterisk media, and now I'm down from 95 to 18 available choices.
Yeah.
Right.
18. Right. So the difference here is this is more finance driven in the sense of a reporting. It's tied to a solution group. That's what your media solutions, retail solutions, etc. are. So you can narrow it down. Whereas product is an Oracle field, and at this point there is no tie between product and company or business unit. So this one is much more refined than the other, and I can't say that there is even a relationship between the two,
Yeah. Yep. That's great. Thank you,
unfortunately.
Gail. Project type. This is where you get into three different types. We've standardized down to grow, run, or transform, which I believe should be pretty common amongst most business units at this point. Is that a correct statement, Gail? Okay. So I'll choose
Yes.
this as a run project, and now I'll choose a category. So in this case, I'll choose that this is an agile product, or I'm sorry, a project category. And in
Project.
this case, one thing I'm going to call it is if you are someone from Canada, Canada does not have integration ties with Oracle today. So if if you are someone from Canada who's creating a project for the first time, or you're just creating a project in general, make sure you choose Canada at this point. We'll talk about the different options that you have until we make a couple of changes, which would allow you to then choose Agile. But for now, you'll choose Canada, and you'll get your understanding as if it's an Agile project or not through the project accounting ruling, which we'll talk about. So I'm going to go ahead and choose Agile on this piece here. Again, this Oracle number field, it's read only. This is because Oracle will populate this value back through integration once it's been approved and created on the Oracle side. Here now we get to the key members of your project, the four different fields where you're selecting members. Gail, can you help me with the explanation of all four?
Yeah, the executive sponsor would be someone at the level of a VP or SVP. So, for example, for ETS, as Joe has there, a commonly chosen person is Mark Satterfield. The finance approver has to be an employee, and the individuals that we have chosen here are members of the finance department only. You can't choose your tube mate. Sorry. Business owner. Who's owning this from the business side? Who's driving it from the business side? That's what that field is for. And finally, okay, Joe, Chris Yeager. Finally, the tech owner. Who's actually going to be driving the implementation? Again, contractors cannot be chosen here. It is restricted to employees. The project manager can be a contractor, but the tech owner cannot, and that is due to an Oracle
That's
restriction.
Great. And dual project for this one, I'm going to choose no. Gail, if I were to choose yes, what does dual project mean?
Dual project means that funding is coming from really another department. We had or business organization. So, for example, we had a project last year where technically Mark Satterfield was the executive sponsor. We did the implementation, but the funding was coming out of facilities. And so it wasn't coming out of any of Mark Satterfield's departments. It was coming out of facilities. So that's what.
And if you choose yes, you have to put in comments in the project. I'm going to choose no.
Yes, you do. You have to basically say, where is it coming from? Who is funding this project?
Questions for ruling. So you'll see that I just passed through the first leg. Now at this point, I could simply just save this form and come back to it later. Okay? So whenever you have a project in a new state, you have the flexibility to say, I'm just creating a placeholder. I'm not ready to submit this and request approval. You'll see this request approval button. I'm not ready to do that at this point. I'm going to save this. You could hold on to this for as long as you need to. Okay? So at this point, let's just say I'm here to fill out all my key fields and I want to get this to project accounting, or in for finance approval as quickly as possible. So then I would fill out all of the fields here and I would go to tech questions for ruling. Now, one key piece I want to point out here is that if I tried to hit this request approval button right now, it's going to scream at me and say, hey, there's a bunch of fields that you have not completed that are required in order for us to submit this for approval. So at this point, those questions would be every question you see on this form, right here, up top, and here. So we're not wasting any space. Each one of these fields are definitely required. And there's one last piece of the leg that we'll get to, which is cost plans, which would be required as well. So we'll get to that point. The financials tab is yours. It's all read only, and it's all driven through calculators that come across via your estimations and your actuals that will come back from Oracle. So we'll talk about what happens with those fields and how those calculations work. So back to the key fields here. These questions for ruling, Gail, if I'm not mistaken, this is very similar to what's in CAPPM today.
It is identical
Okay.
to what is in CAPPM
So these are
today.
all yes/no
Yes.
questions at the top, all 6 of them, and then your solution, we'll have Gail explain that in a minute here. So for new software development, think of these as questions that are going to help the project accounting team make the specific ruling that's needed. Is this a capital project? Is it operating? And which specific template do we want to apply? And we'll talk about the different pieces of why the template is important. So is this new software development for your project?
Right.
You choose yes or no. So again, these are all yes or no fields. Enhancement to existing functionality. System upgrade. Right? Gail, is there anything specifically you want to talk about or any of these fields?
Oh dear, I think I'm so used to them that no. But one of the things is with these is it is your best as a project manager. It is your best estimation of the answers. So, for example, new software development. Are we building something from scratch versus enhancement to existing functionality? Where we are taking something that does exist and we are improving it. And based upon these and what's in that solution, which is what is the solution? That's a description of what the proposed technical solution is going to be. We're going to do a data center consolidation, for example. We are going to bring several project management and financial and time reporting systems together for another. So it is the solution that's there. That allows project accounting to get a sense of whether the project can be capitalized. Is it creating an asset versus is it operating? Is it just more, running the business?
All right, that's great. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and save the form. Let's say I'm not quite ready to create my cost plan. Ignore this error. Like I said, we're in the development phase. Okay, so cost plans. Cost plans are exactly that, your planned cost for your project in determining the estimated amounts. The key piece here is that this is what your finance approver is essentially approving. So as I open this up, Gail, you can explain this so much better than I can, so I will pause my breath here, and I will hit the new button.
Yes, I was going to say, click on the new button. All right, well, click. Yes, I was going to say, click on the new button, please. All right, so you can name this. So, for example, you might want to put in employee labor. And start of the starting fiscal period. We have a whole long list of fiscal periods, so you have lots to choose from. But let's say, as Joe was about to do, fiscal year 18, period 1. January of 2018. And our ending fiscal period, we're going to make 12.
And I think we've entered fiscal periods all the way through 2020 or 2021 at this point.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So as I said, lots Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So as I said, lots of flexibility here. Okay. Cost type. So very similar, contractor labor, employee labor, but notice
Sorry, I'm
there's
fixing
CapEx,
this 1 second
OpEx
here.
on basically all of these.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. There we are. So you are estimating now. You are, again, your best estimate that your employee labor is going to be capital labor. So that's the one you would choose, as opposed to if you know it's going to be operating, then you choose the OpEx. Okay? Quantity is usually one, unless you're buying equipment, in which case you might have hundreds, let's say, of servers. If you're buying hardware. Your currency is US dollars. Your unit cost, that is for your employee, that's the annual salary, if you know it, for your employee, or a blended rate, in which case your quantity would have to be more than one. Recurring says, takes that unit cost and spreads it. If you check the recurring box, it spreads it equally across, or actually it copies it across all the fiscal periods. If you take recurring off, then it spreads that value across the fiscal periods. It divides it up. And Joe, if you will hit submit, we can see what that looks like.
And I think there's a one general piece to call out here is that once you create a cost plan, you could always come back to it and make the edits on the estimations should you have to do that. So an example is we just entered the 40,000, and at that point I want to say, hey, let's go actually take a look and see, maybe I want to change that to 50,000 at some point. So you'll see I have one cost plan in, and I have 40,000 as my unit cost here. Okay, so I could come back to this cost plan and make that edit, or I can continue adding more cost plans should I have other expenses or other costs. Correct, Gail?
Right. Correct. And as Joe said, this is creating the estimate for the finance approver to say, does our department, does our organization have enough money to fund this? And of course, CapEx dollars are different than OpEx dollars, so that's why these designations are important. But this is building an estimate. Basically, it's building a budget for your project, and once that estimate is approved,
that's a really good call out. So
budget.
let's say this is all I was going to charge on this project, and I hit request approval. This button up top here. What that's going to happen is it's going to send a summarized email of all of these attributes, these fields that you completed for your project over to your finance approver. Some of which we've already seen happen today. Dave Downer, Gene Maldonado, we've seen some of them working in details with how the emails work, and some of them have made some approvals at this point. So there'll be a summarized email that then sends, and what's going to be included in that email is this cost plan detail here, right? So they'll actually see the different line items. If you have multiple cost plans and you're saying one's for employee labor, one's for hardware if you're purchasing hardware, one's for professional services or contractor, and you can put your different cost types in there based off of the different expense type, CapEx or OpEx, put your amounts, and they'll essentially be approving, hey, your estimated cost for your project is $40,000. That's what I'm going to approve. And once they approve that, this project budget field will get populated with that amount. And that would be the $40,000. That's essentially your budget that you're going in with, that your finance approver approved. Any other key points to that, Gail?
Budgets can be approved, and later on, going through our project states, for example, you might run into a situation where you realize that more functionality needs to be built than you had originally planned. So that's one of the reasons that the description field is left open. The other is that your cost plans can be modified to reflect the fact that now you need additional funding. And there's once we get to, I believe it's active project, you can request more budget for your project. And then it goes back to
Yes,
finance
that's
approval.
absolutely correct. I'm going to go ahead and hit that button now, Gail, unless there's anything else you want to review here.
No, I think we have covered it all.
Okay.
At this point. No, I
And
think
I'm
we
going to hit
have
this
covered
button.
it all.
Everybody who's
this
watching this
point.
video, no idea if this is going to work in Dev because we've made some changes. It did! So you'll notice how this went to pending finance approval, and you see all these fields locked down. The reason for that is we don't want you to go sneak in some money where they got an email that says it's $40,000 and your cost plans got updated to, where you can buy or get some additional funding for that project. So at this point, you can edit who the project manager is, but that's about it. Okay. So an email just got sent, in this case, to Dave Downer. Dave Downer now can approve or reject from a financial approver piece. So once his approval takes place, it's very quick. This actually gets put into a pending project accounting approval. Gail, for purposes, do you think it makes sense for us to walk through the accounting ruling and the templates?
No, I don't. I really don't.
Okay.
No, I don't. I really don't. I'm not going to pretend that I know all the ins and outs of how project accounting makes its ruling. Again, basically, if an asset can be created, or if there's hardware purchased, for example, even on an OPEX type project, they will rule it capital. But I don't know all the rules, so no, I'm not going to go there any further. Except that once they do approve, then they will set a template. So an Agile, for example, CapEx template, an Agile OPEX template, a waterfall CapEx or a waterfall OPEX template. There are other kinds of templates for facilities build-out, lender services, general activity. Most of the projects that are going to be done in Rick Gibbs's organization are going to fall in the technology arena.
And with that said, this goes to project accounting. They make their ruling. It's a very simple and easy process. They actually work in the system. They have a separate module that we don't see. Robert's not in project accounting that he does not see, which gives him the ability, or them the ability, the project accounting team, to make their ruling quickly. Once that happens, it's automatic. We actually send on I think it's every hour, if there's a project available that's waiting to send to Oracle, we send it. Oracle then has daily jobs that pick up that project. The creation happens, and then the Oracle ID comes back to us that updates that it's an active project. You will get a notification that your project made it to active, and based off of that, that's where you'll see the additional assignee field exposed, to where you can add those resources to your project as we showed earlier. And then the second piece would be people now could request that project from that Add Me to a CapG project catalog item. The last piece that will be in another training video will be the close process, which will be how you close out a project, how you distribute assets, and what are the specific details around that. Gail, any other comments you want to make?
Yes, on close, as Joe said, we'll do something separate there, because it can be quite detailed, especially if you have a capital project where you have to put what are called assets in service. For OPEX, it's very simple. Let's say, I want to close this project. You put in some close notes and you're done. But the capital ones do require some training.
Well, Gail, I think we ran through the full list of what would be project creation and approval 101. If you don't have anything else, Gail, I think at this point we can just say there's a project FAQ sheet posted out on Fuel, and the same goes for time entry and approval if there are questions on how you get people added to projects and potentially why someone may not have a role to enter time. As Gail mentioned before, these are for CAPG projects, so it's the same thing applies. We want to make sure before someone just gets added to enter time that they are part of a CAPG department very specifically before they can enter time and we approve time for those projects. As we know, things are changing a lot in the organization, so if you are somebody who entered time in Initas, there may be a chance that you do not enter time in service station for the time being, or ever if you don't ever exist in a CAPG specific department. Gail, any other comment on that piece?
And that is absolutely correct. The other piece, which some project managers have run into already, and that is they want contractors assigned to projects. There's no restriction per se against adding contractors to projects. The issue comes down to assigning them to or allowing them to book time. We can allow contractors who are on an approved list from procurement, to book time to whatever project they are assigned to. But if a contractor requests access to the time portal and they are not on that list, what that means is that procurement doesn't really know about them at all. They are not on any statement of work that procurement is aware of. So in that case, their request to be added to the time portal and time entry portal will be denied. Procurement will be notified, and then the project manager needs to work with procurement to get them recognized.
Well, that's fantastic, Gail. Thank you so much for partnering up and tag teaming this training video. I think is very helpful, and I actually learned a few things on this training session as well. So, kudos to that. Look for other slight changes and enhancements that we make across the platform. We just went live at the timing of this video. We literally just went live a week ago. We plan a much bigger release to happen over the course of the next few weeks. So a lot of things happening at this point in time. We will update FAQ sheets as we receive new and additional information as it ties to project accounting rules and details. So thank you very much for watching this. Reach out to us if you have any questions or concerns, and we'll be happy to help you out. All right, thank you very much. Thanks, Gail.